And when we make mistakes in life, in the process of living, that negativity bias can turn on us in the form of our inner critic, where we are constantly criticizing ourselves and saying that, oh, I should have done this better, et cetera, et cetera.
Hello, and welcome to In the Rising podcast. My name is Bettina Brown, and this is the platform I've chosen to talk about living a life that's in alignment with our hopes, our dreams, and our goals, and turning our back on that shame-blame game that does nothing for us, nor does it help turn that needle to our own true north and to our destiny. My special guest today is Ofosu Jones-Quartery, who is an amazing hip-hop artist, an amazing author, and just a good soul. You know when you meet him, right? You know when you meet people if they're just good human beings, and this is definitely what Ofosu is. He is the author of Love Your Amazing Self, and I invite you to listen to our conversation. Thank you so much for being on In the Rising podcast. It's a pleasure to speak with you, and your topic, your book, Love Your Amazing Self, is right up my alley and is really important for people to hear. So first off, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It really means a lot that you decided to highlight the book. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And this is a book that's really needed. I'd like you to just share what prompts you to talk about the things that you do.
Yeah, a lot of it is based on my own journey. Recognizing that I came from a loving household, I had both parents, and everything on the surface was just as it should be. But I still inevitably fell into anxiety and depression as I got older in my young adolescence and in my teenage years. And those challenges stayed with me in my young adult life. And as I had kids of my own, I started to think of what would have been helpful, what additional messaging would have been helpful for me as a kid. I also work with young people and adults as a mindfulness educator, and I could see the same kind of patterning happening, that as kids are mature into early adolescence and young adolescence, they begin to, not all, but many begin to fall into what Tara Brach calls the trance of unworthiness, believing that they're not good enough as they are, that they have to either have this item or that item or this online persona or this way of being, et cetera, in order to be valid and in order to be lovable. And I want to create something that serves as an antidote to that line of thinking. So this book is overtly written for young people, but also covertly written for adults also, so that we can, when adults and young people are sharing this book together, there can be this collective experience of inspiring self-love and self-compassion.
And when I read this to my son, each breath is a gift and a message from nature to live your life now, not behind you or later. I realize that he may not at 12 fully understand that, but I certainly can absorb that in a way that as my life has moved on from, adolescence into 20s, that I can think of that line differently. So just the person reading that with their child will take a message from that as well. Yeah. And you highlighted something that is so prevalent in many age groups, that somehow being you is not good enough.
Right.
When you're working with people and your mindfulness and you're like, what is that? Why do you feel that we are not thinking we're good enough?
So I think that there are sort of two things at play here, and they both stem from a common origin. Human beings have what's called negativity bias, and it's the reason why we slow down when there's an accident on the road to see what's happening. It's the reason why negative news stories are always the ones that feel most sensational. It's the reason why when something negative is trending on Twitter, that's where everybody, goes first. That comes from our evolutionary ability to solve problems. We're always looking for the problem so that we can solve it, so that we can, be happier essentially. But I think what has happened to us over time is that negativity bias has turned on ourselves. We're no longer searching out threats in the wild, so when we're at home in our relatively modern lives, that mechanism is still going. What could be better? What could be better? What could be better? Oh, I could be better. Why did I say that? Why aren't I doing this? Why don't I look like that person? Why am I not as popular as this person? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? So there's this, and when we make mistakes in life, in the process of living, that negativity bias can turn on us in the form of our inner critic, where we are constantly criticizing ourselves and saying that, oh, I should have done this better, et cetera, et cetera. And that voice can get very loud, and we can believe it very deeply. And you have that compounded with the external messaging from social media, from general media, and just from the language of our current culture. And the culture of our current culture, which is always asking us to do more, to take the perfect picture, to be in the perfect scenario, to say the perfect things, wear the perfect things. And this internal and external messaging of "you are not enough" can quickly become something that we believe is innate and is absolutely true. And this book is really meant to challenge that idea.
And you now work in mindfulness. You are a hip hop artist. How do you combine those to be that light? You're right. We have used negativity to be a solution, but now it used to be we only carried our environment, our town. Now we're carrying the entire planet, which is too much for anyone's soul. That's not what we're designed for. But now you are here, you are one soul, and you are wanting to make a change. How are you using your gifts as an artist and writer to do that?
Yeah, I really thought long and hard about what would make my life meaningful. What would, when it's all said and done for me, what would be the evidence of a life well lived? And for me, I think that encouraging people to recognize their basic goodness, reminding myself and others that you are enough, we are enough. If I can simply encourage other people in this world to remember that who they are inside is no accident. All the gifts that they have are worthy. That each one of us is our own particular brand of genius. And for there to be less sadness and self-hatred in the world, then that would be a life well lived. So whether I'm expressing that in a hip hop song, or whether I'm expressing that in a book, or in any or in the work that I do in teaching, that's really the central message for me, is that you are enough.
You are enough right now. And even as you write books and produce songs and have a good chat at the coffee shop, you are enough, and you just share that enoughness. I really like what you said, a life well lived, because that is something we hope to rise up to by whatever day that is, to say, yes, I lived a good life. You've done tremendous things. You just transcend peace across our Zoom right now with yourself. What do you see yourself rising up to next? What is on the horizon for Ofusu?
Well, thank you for those kind words, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. Well, on a fundamental level, I just want to keep improving as a person, to keep coming home to myself, and expressing that in the world in whatever way that shows up. On a more practical level, I plan on writing a children's album to accompany "Love Your Amazing Self," to put these verses to music, and I'll be working on that. And I'll be working on that this month. Well, this month, into the new year. So that'll be something that I'll be releasing in the new year. And I recorded a hip hop album last year called "In This Moment," and I will be releasing some follow up music to that as well. So there'll be more music, music to accompany the book, "Love Your Amazing Self," some additional music, and hopefully some visuals, and who knows, maybe another book as well.
I love that. This is a dynamic book. It is really well illustrated as well. It is something that calls you in, and I love it. Joyful verses for young voices, because we all have a voice, and to acknowledge the young ones are so important as well.
Absolutely.
Ofosu, I am so grateful for your time. This has been really a wonderful conversation to me. It's been a delight and pleasure, and congratulations on everything you've done and on what you're planning to do. It's amazing.
Bettina, thank you so much for having me. And for your listeners, just a gentle reminder to say something kind to yourself. It's think of what you check in with, how you're feeling in this moment. And if your best friend or loved one was feeling the same way, what would you say to them? And just say those same things to yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And your book is available everywhere, right?
That's right. So cool. I walked into Barnes and Noble with my kids and saw it in there the other day. So really nice feeling. I always want to encourage people to support their local independent booksellers. And so please do that. But it's available everywhere in all formats, online, all over the place.
You know, every once in a while, you have conversations with someone that you could have a really great conversation for like another 6 hours of your day, having a nice cheesecake and a nice cup of tea with you, and just kind of delve into the lessons you've learned, what your visions are for the future, and how you hope to kind of raise up the whole vibration of yourself, your family, and humanity in general with what you're doing. You have a service attitude, and yet you also are realistic enough to see what's around you and know where you can fit and make a difference. And that's absolutely what Ofosu did today. It is completely what he's done in his book, Love Your Amazing Self, Joyful Verses for Young Voices. And I welcome you to look for this book and read it to your child, read it to anyone, and you will notice that not only is the person listening to you receiving something, but you as the speaker are receiving as well. If you feel that this conversation is something that would be beneficial for someone you know, I invite you to share this. The more hands and ears that we put this podcast into, the better for all of us together. I also invite you to leave a heartfelt true review on Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you get your podcast from, because it does help raise up the podcast and, again, spreads the word. Thank you so much for your time, because it's that one thing we don't get back. And until next time, let's keep building one another up.